our last story quest before we go to Amphoreus in 3.0, Sunday's redemption arc and the farewell of Penacony. In this video, we're going to be breaking down the 2.7 quest with Sunday. Now, the quest itself isn't really much to it, but we got a ton of little Easter egg details that adds to the bigger picture going into Amphoreus and the future of Honkai Star Rail. I'm also pretty happy that in my last Amphoreus video, I actually called that Sunday would join the Astral Express and that Erudition would be one of the 3 eons associated with Amphoreus that Black Swan told us about. So I am happy about that. And this also leaves us with a ton of crazy plot twists we could see in the future of Honkai Star Rail, especially in 3.0. Along with Tingyun and her story, and the cryptic ending with Herta finally getting her adult form officially. Let's break it all down. You also probably noticed that some characters didn't even have voice lines, and Tingyun's voice lines for both her 4-star and 5-star characters are outright changed. Honestly, it caught me off guard, but I don't mind her new voice, to be honest. As for the lack of voices for Robin, Himiko, Dongheng, to name a few, it's sort of annoying and sort of ruins the immersion when playing a story quest. Hopefully, this issue for both Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail gets resolved soon, and hopefully that gets resolved in a way that leaves the voice actors and the games happy. But with that out of the way, let's get into the quest. So for the most part, we are following around Sunday, who is a fugitive in disguise in Penacony, along with his little companion, 1 Week, who is actually just a version of Sunday split within the dreamscape. We also saw a more exaggerative version of this later on with Tingyun, split into many different forms or versions, different aspects of her memory. But then of course Sunday runs into Welt, and Welt sees through the facade right away. And Welt is able to sense Sunday through the disguise, but also has some empathy towards Sunday and what he's going through. Welt being somebody that's not only far from home but in a different video game now, so he has some inkling as to what Sunday's going through. But he decides to accompany Sunday though, because obviously Sunday can't outright be trusted, especially since the IPC helped free him, and Sunday most likely being bound to Jade of Credit, one of the 10 Stone Hearts. This is going to be important in future Honkai Star Rail story. We're going to get into that in the end of the video. Simultaneously, Himiko has asked Herta's help to do more research about Amphoreus, because obviously if anyone can figure out the missing details that they need for their next journey, it's the geniuses. Himiko having a brief conversation with Screwlum. Screwlum talking about how, for the most part, most geniuses kind of keep to themselves and don't really keep in touch. And most of the geniuses have already been killed due to the Lord of Silence, which is Polka Kakamond. But if you haven't played the newer simulated universe, oh my goodness, you are missing out. And Polka Kakamond's going to be somebody that's going to be very important in later Honkai Star Rail. Definitely worth brushing up on her lore, and she is one of the most dangerous characters in this entire game, bar none. Going back to Sunday, him and Welt run into the rest of the gang, the main MC and March 7th, who are looking after Tingyun, helping her find some souvenirs before an envoy of the Xianzhou Alliance comes to pick her up. But much like Sunday, Tingyun is split into multiple memories in the memory zone, so the other version of himself uses his tuning powers of harmony in order to help resolve this, but it almost backfires. This is due to the remnants of the destruction left on Tingyun. Now this part of the story I wasn't too keen on. I wish they would have actually had a separate story quest where they could have fleshed out her story a little bit more instead of cramming it into this one, but we get to see Run Mei actually save Tingyun from the brink of death. Like we learned in the Xianzhou main story, she was controlled and possessed by Phantilia, a Lord Ravager. All of the Lord Ravagers that are emanators of the destruction all possess unique and different aspects of destruction. Phantilia is a Heliobus, which is a long-life species of the abundance, and they have the ability to take over and possess organic life forms like a virus from within. Phantilia is the omega and strongest apex of the Heliobus, and when they possess an individual, they leave permanent damage both emotionally, mentally, and physically. It does tremendous damage to your health and body. And Phantilia being the strongest of the Hilibus, everybody is amazed that she's even still alive. But this is due to Phantilia actually keeping her alive because she was useful, deliberately not destroying her body. And then when we finally figured it out, she abandoned Tingyun's body. So Runmei was actually able to save her just barely. But she's going to have physical and mental permanent damage from the destruction. Runmei also informs us that she had to make quite a few altercations to her tail, which is what helped keep her alive. There is also multiple heartwarming moments, one with the Trailblazer on March 7th. Tingyun's actually never really wholeheartedly met us and got to know us, but we act as if we've known her before and she's a close friend. So even though this is the first time we are all truly hanging out, she feels like she has a connection with us. Everyone from the Luofu also being relieved that she's alright and she's back, especially Yokon, who is the envoy from the Alliance to pick her up and bring her back home. Tingyun is actually a traveling merchant, and although she reminisces with Yokon about flying for the first time even when she was little, she was never a warrior, but this is what inspired her to be a traveling merchant, one of the best in the Alliance. And there's where we get some interesting dialogue. They talk about being pawns of the gods. What they're referring to is the Eons, obviously. We know that there's this big war of the Eons brewing, but it seems that the folks that follow the Eons are getting sick and tired of being pawns, uncontrollable variables in the big scheme and the big picture. Her being a traveling merchant is what let Phantilia possess her. Being somebody that comes and goes made her a perfect target to infiltrate the Alliance from within as an emanator of destruction. For Tingyun, she was an unlucky bystander, but now that she's survived a Lord Ravager, she might be able to give the Alliance an edge, and not only seeking revenge against the destruction, but other eons as well. This goes along with the Godslayer protocol we got teased back in 2.5. Her surviving body might be able to give the answers that the Alliance needs, and she can no longer just be a bystander, a pawn in the game. And if she's going to be a pawn, she's going to be a nuisance, like she jokes about. I might be a speck of dust to the Eons and all of the major players in the big picture, but if I am a speck of dust, I'm going to at least make them sneeze. We know the Alliance wants to kill Yaoshi of Abundance, but this will ultimately leave a bigger problem, because then the hunt will have to hunt something else. I'm sure they're going to explore this a lot more as time goes on. Moving back to Sunday now, he goes to see Robin, but because he doesn't want Robin to get in trouble with the other families talking to a fugitive, he decides to remain in disguise and just visit with her for a while, where they have a nice, heartwarming moment. But obviously, Robin knows exactly who it is, saying that you still can't bring yourself to say goodbye. That's okay, and wishes Sunday well on his journey. And this is where Sunday goes to the theater and has to fight and wrestle with his inner self. Like Wanaweek joked about, Sunday's a control freak. He is genuinely scared to leave Penacony because Penacony has allowed him to maintain control and order. Sunday, to his core, follows the order and wants to control everything around him. He is trying his utter best to learn to roll with the punches, take things as they are. But for somebody like him, it's almost impossible. And although he follows the order, he can still tune the harmony because harmony is a part of order now. It always was. Harmony is the broader path, and there will always be remnants of order within harmony. For Sunday, it's leaving his fate up to chance, which his other self thinks is insane. He's baffled. This isn't like you at all. You have to control every little thing, every little outcome. But Sunday's just allowing fate, an unknown variable, to decide what happens to him next, which is a huge step for Sunday. And towards the end of the quest, we all knew this was coming. Once he's able to wrestle within himself, he asks Welt to join the Astral Express, already expressing that Welt and the other Nameless show compassion to planets, even if they have no investment there. He thinks that Welt is very sincere along with the other Nameless, so wants to join them in their travels, at least temporarily as of now. All of the other Nameless agree, and honestly I think this is a huge detail and a huge addition to the Nameless. We're getting a new member for now, and it's interesting to add somebody now part of the harmony. But what makes this even more interesting and crazy now, this is where the theories come in, is two things. One, if you watched my Amphoreus video, I'm not going to go into too crazy detail here, but there's a lot of hints towards the Order being the original eon of that planet. Currently, there are 3 eons fighting over Amphoreus. We know 2 of them now, Erudition and, obviously, the Remembrance. It's going to be a new playable path. Black Swan's the one leading us here. I think it goes without saying. And I talked about how I think this entire new chapter is going to be like a memory. We're going to be playing through a memory as the story quest. Possibly a mixture of the past and present, kind of amalgamated together in this very cryptic story we're going to be jumping into here. As for the 3rd eon, we're not exactly sure. It's hinted towards either nihility or destruction, maybe even the Enigmata, trying to disrupt Erudition, shrouding all of the mysteries that Erudition wants to unravel in mystery. So it would be interesting if the Order was the original eon of Amphoreus, a civilization that thrived and then eventually decrumbled like all civilizations the Order has been associated with. But don't forget, Sunday has a debt to the IPC. The IPC now has a leg in Penacony. The IPC want to control everything and everyone. An organization that follows the preservation Ouroboros of veracity. That's what I think. Intergalactic gluttony, if you ask me. Would the IPC want to get their hands on a new planet or location that only really the Memo Keepers know, and now the Genius Society are trying to uncover some secrets? You betcha. Could Sunday be a Trojan horse now, joining the Nameless? Yeah. I'm not saying that his redemption here in Penacony wasn't sincere, but he has a debt to the IPC. The Lady Jade has her persuasion techniques, and Sunday still has his powers of tuning and the harmony. And I see this playing out in 2 very different ways. One, he could be the Nameless's new biggest player in this next chapter, especially if Order was the original eon of Amphoreus. He could quite literally be the Astral Express's trump card in this new chapter, especially if it's a lot to do with memory and the remembrance, which it's going to be. And he could turn out to save our ass in this quest. But he could also be the opposite. He could be just a Trojan horse using 2.7 to join the Nameless and now acting as a double agent. Maybe he is sincere in his motives and wanting to leave Penacony and all of that behind, but the IPC will track him against his will, and he will lead the IPC right there. Plus, there's a lot of Stonehearts we still have yet to meet. It is honestly very interesting. Sunday now being part of the Nameless just adds so much to where we could go with this story. He is such a unique player, and this kind of just reinforces why I think Enna of Order is associated with Amphoreus in the past. Sunday being its loyalist follower that we know of. Now, if you watched my Amphoreus video, I talked a lot about how I think not only is this one of Enna of Order's original planets, but maybe this is where this eon ascended into eonhood, being one of the oldest eons in history. Maybe Enna of Order's most loyal follower, that's now part of the Nameless. We'll get to see the birthplace of his eon and the flaws that come with Order. But let me know in the comments what you think will happen with Sunday. Do you think he's going to be a loyal Nameless through and through? Do you think he'll betray the Nameless in the name of the IPC, who he owes a debt to? Or do you think he's going to abandon both and just take over Amphoreus as its new ruler and the control freak that he'll always be? I'm curious to read your thoughts in the comments. And finally, this brings us to Herta. I'm not gonna lie, Herta and Screwlum are probably the most genuine and wholesome of the Genius Society. The Geniuses in general lack utter compassion for anyone or anything. They will experiment and seek knowledge for the sake of it, no matter the consequence or the harm to other people or civilization. Herta and Screwlum seems to at least have a moral compass, but I couldn't help but feel a little bit ominous watching this scene with Herta being revealed in her adult form, and then now is gazing upon Herta's adult form. Herta being an emanator of Erudition, that makes sense, but Erudition was created by a Genius Society member. I can't almost help but it looks like Herta's gazing upon the Eon. Herta being a playable character next patch. I'm assuming she's going to be part of the storyline of Amphoreus at some point, probably in 3.0. More than likely in 3.0 because she'll be playable, but I'm also curious to hear your thoughts about this as well. How do you think Herta's going to factor into this whole chapter? And on that note, thank you so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed the video. This wasn't the largest of story quests, but really it's just meant to be a stepping stone for the next patch that's going to be a doozy and a big one, so I'm looking forward to that. But if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. As a bit of a farewell to Penacony, because it's been such a nice chapter. I really loved everything about Penacony, the overworld, the theme, the story. It was really honestly amazing. So I was thinking about doing an entire family lineage video on the family of Penacony, the history, all of its members. If you'd like to see something like that, let me know. And on that note, we'll see you all in the next one. Later.